Okay, so welcome to another Take Me Higher Chats. I'm Justin Meredith.
I'm Ash Simmons.
Today, we're going to talk about a topic that we haven't really had an awful lot of time to, or we purposely haven't sort of shared notes on this one.
Yeah.
So it'd be an interesting sort of way that it goes. We're going to talk today about death. Now, it's a bit of a funny topic, but one that I think doesn't get talked about an awful lot. Yeah. Before I go into the video, if you don't mind, please like, share, subscribe, interact, make comments, do everything you can to kind of make this project or business of ours thrive and get shared, because you don't realize, but you know, the more you share, the more you like, these things actually start to go viral, as it were, which is something that we'd like to do. Okay, so death for me, I'm uncomfortable talking about this.
I can see.
You can you? Yeah. I'm trying avoiding it just by talking about like and subscribe and just about babbling on. But look, I lost my mum in a really, really tragic accident when I was in my mid-20s. I hadn't even really considered death. The only people that I had lost in my life had been people that had got into their sort of mid-80s and were probably kind of ready to go or waiting to go. Yeah. My mum was vibrant, full of life. She was the head of our family. She was an amazing woman, and she was taken so tragically. And that really, really changed my relationship with what death actually is. Have you got any of your own kind of experiences?
Yeah, it's one of those events that you don't know how you're going to be until it happens. You have to live through it. And I'd like to say that I'm prepared for the people that I expect to go before me. You look at, I mean, your parents and your grandparents, you expect that those people are going to go before you. Fortunately for me, I haven't lost any parents yet, so I'm very lucky in that regard. But I have lost a lot of friends through many different mechanisms. The one that probably hurts me the most was killed in Afghanistan when I was there. And the reason is because he was just such a beautiful soul. We met, he was already a returned veteran of Afghanistan. We met on an explosive ordnance disposal course. This one will get me. And I was a Navy kid on an Army course. Most of the guys had been to a theatre of war, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, so they're all very experienced. I hadn't. I was very junior, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I really, really struggled. Scotty, being the guy that he is, sort of put me under his wing and said, "Come on, mate, I'll help you through this." And we became really close from that day on. And yeah, I nearly failed that course. I got to what's called a CO's retest. So that's your last straw. Like if you fail that, then you get sent back to your unit. You don't get promoted. You don't go. You don't deploy. There was a lot riding on it. So even on that scenario, it was a scenario-based test. I'd made a mistake, and he picked it up, and he's like, "Mate, you got to go and fix this, and you've got to do it quick." So again, he got me through that. So, and he was the best of the best. After he was killed, there's many trophies and stuff named after him because of his acts of valor, I guess. Super professional, super competent, super great guy. No ego, just. So yeah, that one gets to me that he, and it's not just me saying this, but you talk to any one of his colleagues or friends, and they will say he was the best of the best. Yeah. And I look at him, and if he was that, and he got me through, and I was arguably the worst, at least on that course, then why didn't I die? Why was it him that was taken?
Right.
So that's one that sort of sits with me as that little lesson of death really, really hurts me. And only just recently, my best mate, childhood mate, his dad died. And he was, I guess, very much a mentor for me growing up. He was the one that would take me to swimming training every morning. We'd be in the car at 4:30. He'd be, and Rowan, when he listens to this, he'll laugh that the wisdom that he would impart on us on those drives.
At that time in the morning.
Yeah, that time in the morning when they had this garbage old station wagon where the seals were all gone. So I'd be sitting on the seat that was wet from the rain before, and he'd be just putting these little lessons on us as young sort of teenage boys. So when he died recently, that was a real sort of wake-up call from me that, these people aren't going to be there forever.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think when you do lose people that are older, it does feel kind of natural. It does feel like the cycle, the circle of life is kind of complete. And then you see new life around you, and you see babies being born, and you sort of think, well, they're so full of vitality. But it's that bit in the middle, isn't it? Yeah. It's that bit where you're talking about people that are such heroes, effectively, And I think it was the same for me with my mum. She was an incredible woman. She came from the Welsh Valleys. Her dad was kind of sure that she would be absolutely nobody, but she battled against a lot of that. If ever there was an embodiment of strength, resilience, willpower, and just downright stubbornness, it was my mum. She just got stuff done, and it kind of it rubbed off on us. And she was a district nurse. The irony was that she was sort of an expert in diabetes care, and a diabetic came off the road and killed her, and it just that's just shocking. Yeah. And I think, that changed my life. That moment, absolutely. I think it was a fork in the road for me, a sliding doors type moment. I kind of realized, well, you've only got one life.
Yeah.
You've only got one chance on this earth, and there's no guarantee. Okay, you might get to 80. Like, that's in my head, that's like the age that you might get to. But you might get to 45.
Yeah.
You might get to 50.
You might make it to tomorrow.
You might make it to tomorrow.
And I guess your mum's a good example, and I don't want to harp on it too much because I know it does pull on the heartstrings for you particularly. But everyone's death is almost predetermined in a way. It's a very philosophical way of looking at it, but your number is up when it's up. So the lesson behind that is live now.
Yeah.
Love people, openly love them, hug them, go on holidays, buy a new car, whatever it is, live life.
You're taking my fucking notes.
Sorry, mate. That's the problem with not comparing notes.
Yeah.
It's like I said, very philosophical. You never know when your time's up until it's up. What's stopping us from having a heart attack on the couch right now?
That's exactly right. That is exactly right, Ash. I'm so glad you're saying this, but I watched something with Brené Brown talking the other day, and she had interviewed this guy, or she had come into contact with this guy who had decided, well, I'm not gonna get too high. I'm not gonna get too low. I'm just gonna live in the middle, just in case. So the more excited they get, the more chances of things going wrong. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like, oh, I don't want to celebrate the wins too.
You have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
That stoic mentality of maybe I'll celebrate down the line. Can't do it.
No.
And when the highs are there, just get into it. And one of my off-camera notes is, dance like nobody's watching.
Yeah.
Right? It's a phrase that's it's a fridge magnet, it's a car thing, I don't know, but it's always captured me, and I'm like, that it is true. And I've kind of inadvertently lived my life that way. I've had those holidays.
Yeah.
I've thought, well, screw it. I'm here. I'm not trying to cut my life short with my activities, but I don't know if it's tomorrow. I don't know. I'm going back to the UK tomorrow night. I'm hoping that plane gets to Heathrow.
Yeah, but you never know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
My social, media algorithms are showing me all the plane crashes that have ever happened over the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if it's some sort of subliminal message.
Yeah.
But, you've got to kind of take these opportunities. You can't live under a rock, and you can't suppress that happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. Firstly, I do not want to see you dance like nobody's watching, because I'm tipping you're a fairly average dancer.
No, so good.
But I think we started off saying that death was quite difficult to talk about. You look at certain cultures around the world, certain religions, that they really celebrate death. And I think that's something that's quite important. Whilst, yes, it can be a sad event that you've lost someone and you won't get to do all those special things that you've done with them, but you really need to celebrate what you had with them. And for some people, you that's that one person that you've connected with or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, be thankful for that and celebrate that and mourn that. But I just think there's a negative connotation when there really could be something that's really positive. When I die, I'd hate to see people just moping around. I'd love to see them remembering and laughing and thinking about the happy times that we've had rather than it be a sad event. That's my belief.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like as you're talking, I'm wondering are we talking about death today, or are we actually talking about life?
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, there's conversations to be had around the afterlife and what happens after this. I've got my own personal thoughts.
What are they?
I think the spirit goes on. I really do. Like after I did lose my mum, and actually after I lost my brother-in-law, who was an amazing guy, my age now when he passed away, which I can't believe, of a heart attack.
Yeah.
I went to see clairvoyance, and both my mum and John came through not in a way that you could ever kind of like pretend.
Yeah.
Like they literally got in there and had a conversation and passed on some serious messages.
Yeah.
You couldn't have rehearsed that or preempted it. You know, it was real.
And that's interesting because I don't believe in that sort of stuff, but I haven't had those experiences to form that knowledge. So at the moment, my belief is that I get cremated or I get buried in the ground and I become part of the earth.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice feeling for me. It's a very holistic feeling that I get returned to the earth and I may be a plant or a tree or something. I'm giving life to something else. That's the way that I like to think of that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how different
is.
Experiences result in different understandings or the forming of different knowledge.
Completely agree. And I think, you know, the physical body, you're right. I think I'd like that too. That kind of like going back. Like, you know, you were born out of a couple of cells, you go back into the ground.
Yeah.
You know, we are just kind of part of this bigger energy that goes on through life. But I think there is, I do believe that inside all of us, there is something, and I don't know what it looks like, what it is. I mean, of course I don't, but it's there and it goes on, it goes on forever, hopefully. But getting back to this life thing, you know, like I really do believe that you don't know how long you've got, and I do think you've got to max out. And by saying max out, I don't think you've got to live like a bloody idiot every single day and just kind of like annoy people. Be really, really true to your values and what makes you tick. Your story about your friend has had a bit of an impact on me, even just by listening to you say it, because he left a legacy, Ash.
Yeah.
He left a legacy by being kind, by being an amazing human. How much better is that, leaving a legacy, and people now sat on a sofa years later talking about what an incredible human. And my mum, you know, I would much rather that and be that person that people are so kind of, sorry.
No, you're right. It's all good.
So impressed by and so connected to, than somebody that kind of just sort of shies away.
Along or
doesn't let their full light shine.
Yeah, and I guess ironically, neither of those people I think necessarily were outwardly trying to be the best and overcoming others and that sort of stuff. They were just naturally and organically just doing their thing and doing it as best as they could.
Yeah.
And that resulted in their legacy living on. And for Scotty, in my experience, and there's many people out there that celebrate him, and like I said, there's awards and stuff named after him and buildings because of the amazing person he just was. It was just him.
Yeah.
So it's a nice way to live, I think.
Yeah, agree.
And people get to choose the way they live. That's our opinion. You're welcome to make up your own. I've got a couple of questions for you. Are you scared of death?
I'm not scared of death for me. I like if like on that plane it all falls apart.
Yeah.
It's okay. And again, this is what came through from my mum when that clairvoyant thing, and I feel exactly the same way for my kids. I don't want to leave. I've still got work to do with them.
Yeah.
You know, I still want to. They're beautiful humans. They're beautiful souls, and I want to make sure that I've had a positive impact on their life. So I'm not scared of me dying, but I wouldn't. But I'm scared for the people around me that it wouldn't. What about you?
Again, interesting. Our ideas are very different. I am super scared of death because I love life so much. very similar. Again, it makes me a little bit emotional. Very similar to you in terms of I look at my son, like I love days with him, hours, minutes, seconds with him. So my death results in me not having that time anymore.
Yeah.
And that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've worked within my military background. It was a somewhat common conversation where people would say, like, I'm not scared of death. And I just could never relate to that.
Wow.
And I almost questioned myself because I was like, geez, they're hardened warriors. Like, they're not scared of death. They would go into battle and they would do this and that and take risks. I was willing to do all that, but I was still so scared of death. And I just found it really hard to relate on how they could make that decision. And I was very self-conscious of that I was maybe not as good or proficient or competent or brave or all those words.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer it in a simple question, yeah, I fear death greatly.
I think where in countries where life is cheap, where, you know, like even people feel disposable. And I think, you know, like, you know, there's hangovers of that in big Indian cities where they drive like lunatics. They kind of take these risks and they take that attitude of like, oh, well, it's my turn. When it's my turn to go, it's my turn to go. I think that's wrong. I think your attitude of managing that risk and being careful and not going, you know, balls to the wall and thinking like, oh, well, if I die, I die. I think that's actually really sensible, because I don't think there's anything cowardly or kind of manly or you know, I don't know, brave about that. Because actually I think, like, why wouldn't you want to sustain your life? Like, there is a lot to be done here. And to your point, like, I'm not scared of it, but I do want to continue to live on this planet. Got shitloads of stuff I want to do.
Yeah, that's right.
I want to go to Bali in November.
That's right. It's booked.
I'm excited about that.
Bintangs to drink.
All
right. Well, what about if we're all going to die? Then what's the point of living?
These experiences, it's a really cliched one, but there was a Will Smith movie years ago where he said, life's not about the amount of breaths you take, it's about the moments to take your breath away.
Nice.
Right? Like, I think that's, that was like a sort of an epiphany for me. That, like, I think, you know, okay, we won't remember it when we're dead, but we're not dead, we are alive. Like, and there is some fun to be had. There are some great times to be had out there, and, you know, to love people, to help others. Right. Like, I think we are part of an ecosystem. And, you know, you might be middle of the food chain, but there's people that are lower down and you've got to kind of support them. So like, think about it as a giant reef, like, where we are kind of supporting others.
I love that. And it's, as you know, something that we both live by, sort of that acts of service, looking after ourselves and our loved ones, our friends. And that sort of has that effect of spinning out to, I mean, ideally the whole world. How good would it be if the world just got along and we all helped one another and progressed, the human race? How much better would we be than competing against each other and trying to take each other down? So I think that's the point. That's the point of life.
I agree. And I think there's another video to be done there around helping each other and happiness. I see a lot of fractious societies and parts of society nowadays, and that breaks my heart, because I think, you know, it actually is quite simple, this life thing. If you get it right, you know, you can have a great life and help other people.
Simplify it. Make it simple. I think the point from this, and I guess in closing, is that you don't know when your time's up, so live life. And what I'll say to you guys out there is to go and hug the ones that you love, do something for them, and enjoy yourselves. Live life.
Excellent.